didn't just arrive in this world, you were placed. Like a symbol etched into time, your entrance wasn't random, it was rhythmic, patterned, symbolically loaded. It wasn't simply the weather, the season, the date on a birth certificate. No, Carl Jung believed your birth month was a silent code, a psychological fingerprint infused with archetypal meaning. Not destiny, but a direction, a spiritual leaning, a myth waiting to be remembered. We live in a world that teaches us to measure time in hours and deadlines, but Jung saw time differently. Not as neutral, but as expressive. The seasons weren't just climate, they were chapters in the soul's evolution. So when you were born, in the cold hush of January, the fire of April, or the fading light of November, you stepped into an invisible current, a story already moving, a symphony already playing. And you became a note in that score. This idea may feel strange at first, even esoteric, but it's not mysticism. It's psychology, symbolic psychology, Jungian depth work. Because when Jung looked at birth, he didn't just see a baby. He saw an archetype emerging into matter, a psychic pattern made flesh. And your task, perhaps your only true task, was to remember that pattern, to wrestle with it, outgrow it, and eventually become it. Fully. Consciously. So what if I told you that the month you were born in is more than trivia? More than your zodiac sign? That it could explain why certain emotions always haunt you, why certain roles in life feel inevitable, why no matter how far you travel, one particular wound keeps showing up in different masks. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What if your fate began with your month? A subtle myth told through time, waiting to be recognized? You see, every month, January to December, reflects not just a moment in time, but a psychological season, a symbolic posture of the human soul. Winter is not the same as spring. August is not the same as October. Each holds a tone, an archetype, a specific energy, and you were born into it, you absorbed it, and unless you've excavated its meaning, it's probably still moving you. Let's break that open. Carl Jung believed the universe is structured around archetypes, universal images, symbols, and stories that repeat across time, cultures, and dreams. The hero, the sage, the rebel, the healer, the warrior. These aren't just characters in books, they live in us. They shape our instincts, our emotions, our temptations. And here's the thing, Jung didn't believe we choose our archetypes, at least not at first. Instead, we inherit them, not just from our ancestors, but from time itself. Which brings us back to birth months. What is January really, if not the stillness of the sage? Cold, contemplative, silent. Those born here often feel older than their years, reserved, structured, yet prone to seriousness that weighs down joy. And what is March, if not the awakened child? Emotional, intuitive, reborn after winter's death. These people sense more than they can explain, feel more than they can process. They swim in emotional oceans while trying not to drown. Jung would say they are carrying the reborn archetype, and unless they learn how to balance depth with boundaries, they'll be overwhelmed by their own tide. Now pause, ask yourself, what is your month? What season? What tone? What unconscious energy were you baptized in? Because that's what it is, a baptism, into light or dark, stillness or movement, beginnings or endings. July carries the warmth of the protector, the one who nurtures, holds space, and sacrifices too much. November conceals the alchemist, the one who walks into the shadows, burns in their own fire, and returns transformed. But every archetype has a shadow. That's the price. The seeker of June? Curious, brilliant, but scattered, lost in too many possibilities. The king of August? Inspiring, until pride takes the throne and loneliness becomes his kingdom. Jung never wanted us to idolize archetypes. He wanted us to work with them, integrate them. He saw each one as a mirror, not a box. And your birth month? It's a mirror that was handed to you at the start of your journey. Most people never look into it. They just live, unaware of the patterns driving them. The same arguments, the same failures, the same pain in different packaging. But you're here, listening, searching, which means something in you already suspects. You weren't born on accident. You were born into a message, and your month might just be the messenger. Let's go deeper. If this idea feels unfamiliar, don't worry. It's not about superstition. Jung wasn't drawing horoscopes. He was mapping the psyche. And in that map, time matters, season matters, context matters. The universe to Jung was not made of empty space, but of meaning. and meaning hides in the most ordinary places, including the number on your birth certificate. So what does your birth month want to tell you? What pattern did you unknowingly sign up to live out? What curse were you born to break, and what blessing are you here to embody? In the next part of this journey, we'll dive month by month into Jung's archetypes, not to confine you, but to liberate you. Because once you see the myth you were born into, you can stop being a character and start becoming the author. Before we go further, if you're someone who's always sensed that there's more beneath the surface, that life isn't just events, but patterns, if you've ever felt like your inner world is speaking in riddles only your soul can understand, then take a moment now, like this video, and subscribe to Psychopulse. This is where we don't run from our shadows, we sit with them, study them, and let them speak. Because knowing yourself isn't a hobby, it's survival. Now, let's walk the spiral. We begin in the depth of January, when silence blankets the earth and time itself seems to pause. According to Carl Jung, those born here carry the energy of the sage, not by choice but by vibration. January isn't loud, it's still, reserved, and so are its children. These individuals often feel old from a young age, not in body but in awareness. They don't speak often, but when they do, it carries weight. They're the ones people turn to in chaos, not for excitement but for clarity. Yet there's a cost. The sage can drift too far into thought, detach from joy, and live inside a world of responsibility so heavy it drowns spontaneity. If that's you, remember, wisdom doesn't always wear a serious face. Sometimes, the most enlightened thing you can do is play. Next comes February, cold on the outside, electric within. Jung associated this month with the visionary or the revolutionary. These are the ones who see what doesn't exist yet. They live in the future, in possibility, often misunderstood, often lonely, not because they're broken, but because the world isn't quite ready for what they carry. If you were born in February, you probably know this already. You felt the frustration of being too much or too different. And here's the truth, you are. Because your mind isn't built for small talk, it's built to rewire reality. But beware, vision without grounding becomes illusion. The challenge is learning to root your rebellion into action, to take that wild idea and build it. Then we arrive at March, the threshold between winter's end and spring's beginning. The archetype here is the reborn. This is where things start to move, awaken, melt. People born in March often carry deep emotional sensitivity, an intuitive gift, a quiet mysticism. They don't just feel, they absorb, they live between worlds, logic and spirit, mind and heart, past and future. Jung would say their task is to become whole through reinvention. These are the ones who break down, transform, rebuild, again and again. But if they aren't careful, they can lose themselves in the chaos of feeling, in the tides of their own empathy. The medicine? Boundaries. The gift? Resilience. If you were born in March, your soul chose transformation as its path. But transformation isn't always pretty. It's messy, raw, holy. April explodes like fire. The archetype, the warrior, the initiator. This month screams of momentum, courage, movement. Those born here have a natural drive to start, to act, to push forward, even if they don't know where it's leading. Jung saw this archetype as one of raw willpower. April-born individuals are rarely passive. They charge, they blaze, they spark movements just by entering a room. But the warrior's wound is impatience, burnout, a quick temper that burns bridges before truth has a chance to speak. Their lesson? Power is not just in motion, but in timing. The pause, the stillness, that's where true strength gathers. Then comes May, when nature blooms and the world steadies. This is the month of the builder, the lover of simplicity. The archetype here is all about stability, beauty, and the physical pleasures of life. May-born souls crave grounding. They find nourishment in the tangible, art, food, routine, comfort. They are the ones who bring peace to chaos, who nurture slow, lasting growth. But stability has a shadow too, rigidity, fear of change, a longing for permanence in an impermanent world. Jung would say their work is to let go, not of what they love, but of the illusion that it can last forever. If that's you, your strength is your depth. But don't let that depth become a cage. Then we reach the turning point of the year. June, the month of the seeker or mediator. The light is high, the energy open, and so are those born in June. These individuals carry a playful curiosity paired with a philosophical hunger. They connect easily to people, ideas, questions. They are the bridge builders, the communicators, the eternal students of life. Jung believed the seeker's archetype was essential to individuation because it never settles for superficiality. Yet the seeker can get lost in its own searching, in overthinking, in people-pleasing, in never choosing, because what if there's something better just beyond the horizon? Their task, commitment, focus, the ability to choose a path even when 100 others glitter. Because truth isn't always found by searching, sometimes it reveals itself through staying. And so the first half of the year begins to close, not with answers, but with invitation. 6 months, 6 archetypes, 6 mirrors, each reflecting something ancient within you. The sage's wisdom, the visionary's fire, the reborn's depth, the warrior's drive, the builder's beauty, the seeker's thirst. In the next part of this journey, we'll step into the second half of the year, July through December, where the archetypes become deeper, darker, and more transformative. We move from the visible into the invisible, from expression into introspection. You've seen the surface. Now it's time to descend. The second half of the year doesn't begin, it descends. If the first 6 months are about becoming, the last 6 are about remembering. Something slows. The light fades, nature pulls inward, and so do we. Carl Jung believed that the arc of a year mirrors the arc of a soul: birth, bloom, brilliance, and then the fall, the harvest, the letting go, the integration. In these final 6 months, the archetypes shift from external power to internal depth, from action to meaning, from the ego's expression to the soul's encounter with its own shadow. And that descent begins in July, the warmest month, and paradoxically, the most inward. This is the month of the nurturer, the protector. Those born here often carry an emotional intelligence that runs deep but quietly. They feel like home to others, they create safety, they remember birthdays, read between the lines, and hold space for what others don't even say. Jung saw this archetype as one of great spiritual importance, not because it builds or leads, but because it heals. And yet, the healer's wound is this: forgetting themselves, losing their identity in service, suppressing their truth to keep the peace. If you were born in July, your growth lies not in giving more, but in receiving without guilt, in learning that protecting others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. Then comes August, a blaze of light before the days begin to shrink. The archetype here is the sovereign, the king, the queen, the natural leader. These individuals were born under the energy of presence, expression, command. They don't just walk into rooms, they own them. August-born people are often gifted with vision, charisma, and a sense of destiny. But Jung warned that the sovereign's greatest trial is pride, the need to control, the fear of being misunderstood. And behind it all, a loneliness no one sees, because when you're always wearing the crown, who reminds you you're human? If that's you, the key isn't to give up your throne, it's to share it. To lead not by force, but by listening. To realize that your real power was never in being above, it was in lifting others with you. With September, the season starts to shift. The air sharpens. The archetype here is the analyst, or the perfectionist. Those born in September often come into the world with a natural attention to detail, a gift for order, a mind that sees what's missing before others even know where to look. They're organizers, thinkers, critics, in the best and worst sense. Jung associated this archetype with the mind's need to understand, to name, to make meaning out of chaos. But when that gift turns inward, it becomes a curse. Self-criticism, rigidity, a fear of failure so strong it paralyzes growth. If you were born in September, your work is to surrender the need to be flawless, to accept the cracks in your own armor. Because real intelligence isn't about knowing everything, it's about staying open to what can't be explained. October arrives in color, leaves burn in gold and red, and the archetype of the diplomat or the artist takes center stage. This month holds the energy of beauty, balance, and bridge building. Those born here are often peacemakers, romantics, harmonizers. They have a natural ability to sense emotional undercurrents, to read between hearts, not just lines. But that sensitivity comes with a price: the fear of conflict, the urge to keep everyone happy. Jung understood that harmony seekers often suppress their own truth for the sake of surface-level peace. If that's you, then your evolution lies in honest confrontation, in realizing that real peace doesn't come from avoiding tension, it comes from walking through it with courage and care. Then there is November, a month wrapped in shadow, cold, quiet, unapologetically deep. Jung believed this time of year mirrored the soul's descent into its own underworld. The archetype here is the alchemist, the transformer. These are the people who do not fear the dark. They are drawn to what others avoid: death, loss, grief, rebirth. November-born souls are intense, intuitive, spiritually wired to dig beneath the surface and find the gold hidden in pain. But the path of the alchemist is brutal. They often suffer more than most, not because they're doomed, but because their soul chose transformation as its language. Their challenge is trust, surrender, letting the fire burn away what no longer serves without becoming consumed by it. If that's you, your power is real. But don't forget, even the alchemist needs rest. You weren't born just to suffer. You were born to transmute. Finally, we arrive at December, the closing chapter and the beginning of something unseen. This month holds the energy of the wise teacher, the visionary sage. Those born here carry both maturity and hope. They've seen the cycles, endings and beginnings, and somehow still believe in more. Jung loved this archetype. He saw it as a symbol of integration, of reflecting on what was while dreaming of what could be. December-born people often feel philosophical, spiritual, idealistic. They want a guide, to teach, to inspire. But their shadow, floating too far from the now, becoming so wrapped in visions of what should be that they miss the sacredness of what is. If you were born in December, your gift is vision, but your task is presence. Bring your wisdom down to earth. Live it, not just think it. And now, we've walked the wheel. 12 months, 12 archetypes, 12 mirrors. But this isn't about labels, it's about language. It's about giving name to the currents that have been shaping you since your first breath. Carl Jung never wanted us to become our archetypes. He wanted us to integrate them, to know them, to wield them consciously. Because once you can name the myth you've inherited, you can step outside of it, shape it, reauthor it. The warrior learns to pause, the sage learns to laugh, the nurturer learns to protect themselves, the alchemist learns to rest. But here's the truth Jung left us with. Knowing is not enough. The work begins only once we choose to live differently. In the final part of this journey, we'll explore exactly how to take these archetypes and use them not as identity, but as fuel for growth. We'll talk about individuation, spiritual memory, and how to turn your symbolic birth month into a conscious path of transformation. Because you weren't just born, you were called. So now you know. The month you were born in carries a psychological tone, a myth humming in the background of your life, whether you've heard it or not. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Knowledge is useless until you live it. Carl Jung didn't map archetypes to entertain our curiosity. He didn't study symbols to make us feel special. He did it to confront the unconscious, to make us realize how much of our life is driven not by choice, but by inherited storylines we never knew we were repeating. Because that's what these archetypes are. Stories your soul agreed to walk through. Not as prisons, but as portals. And if you stop at simply naming your archetype, I'm a warrior, I'm a sage, I'm a seeker, you've missed the point. Jung's greatest contribution wasn't giving us labels. It was giving us a process. Individuation, the sacred task of becoming your whole self by integrating your unconscious rather than being ruled by it. Let's be clear. The archetype of your birth month is not your identity. It's a mirror, and like all mirrors, it can distort you if you believe it's all there is. You are more than your tendencies. You are not doomed to repeat your month's pattern. But if you don't see it, it will run your life from the shadows. The sage born in January, they must learn to open, to soften, to dance instead of calculating. The visionary of February, they must ground their wild dreams into something real. Otherwise, they live in castles made of clouds. The reborn of March, they must stop dissolving into their own oceans and learn to swim with structure. And the warrior of April must learn that not every battle is a battlefield. That presence is sometimes more powerful than fire, and so it goes. Each archetype comes with a gift and a wound. Jung taught that confronting this wound, not avoiding it, is the only way to wholeness. It's not about transcending your shadow, it's about embracing it. Because the moment you integrate your archetype, you transcend its unconscious grip. So ask yourself, what have I been repeating my whole life without realizing it? What patterns echo the story of my birth month? Do I constantly seek peace like the diplomat of October, only to feel empty because I've silenced my truth? Do I chase transformation like the Alchemist of November, only to burn out again and again without finding peace? Or maybe I carry the weight of wisdom like the December-born sage, but I've forgotten how to live in the moment instead of constantly planning the future. You see, your month isn't just a symbol, it's a starting point. The question is what you do with it. Will you become aware of your archetypal inheritance? Will you observe it in real time, when it grips your emotions, shapes your relationships, or whispers in the background of your choices? And more importantly, will you challenge it? That's the psycho-spiritual path Jung devoted his life to. And it's not comfortable. Integration isn't romantic, it's painful. Because the moment you meet your unconscious patterns, you also meet the parts of yourself you've been hiding. The perfectionist you've disguised as discipline. The fear you've masked as planning. The shame you've buried under service. But in that confrontation, something sacred happens. You stop being the puppet. You start becoming the presence. This is where real transformation begins. When you look at the symbol, the story, the inherited myth, and choose to reshape it. Not because you're rejecting who you are, but because you're choosing to live consciously. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's not a phrase to print on a mug. It's a warning. Because most people never do it. They stay trapped in unconscious loops. Not because they're weak, but because they never looked at the map their soul carried in. The map was there all along. They just never read it. But you've started to read. You've traced the lines of time. You've seen the season you were born into, and now you know its voice. What you do next, that is the defining moment. You were born in silence, or fire, or color, or shadow, but you don't have to die in it. Your archetype may be your beginning, but it doesn't have to be your end. You can grow it, break it, rebirth it. You can look at your birth month not as a fate, but as a starting ritual, a symbol your soul chose to remind you of the work you came here to do. This is the mission of Psychopulse, to drag what's hidden into the light, to help you see yourself not as a victim of pattern, but as a conscious author of your life's myth. If this journey has stirred something in you, some memory, some ache, some knowing you can't quite name, then you're not alone, and you're not finished. So before you go, take a second now, like this video, subscribe to Psychopulse, and stay with us. There's more to uncover, more patterns to break, more shadows to meet, and more of you, the real you, to bring back from the depths. You were not just born, you were scripted. But now, the pen is in your hands.